Here's a pitch on the way. He swings and fouls it off, and the man from Walla Walla will take that one home. Swing, there's a drive to left. That one is long gone.
Now, I might have been a small part of your life, but you've been a very large part of mine. And it's my privilege and honor to share with you the greatest game of all.
What's going on, nation? AJ Reilly here with another edition of The Corner. This will be the third one this week because if you were paying attention on Wednesday, we went live for a special edition of The Corner after the news of Avila being let go occurred. And it was a great time. There were a lot of people on and a lot of interaction. I absolutely loved it. So if you were around for that, thank you so much for taking part in that, for conversing with me through the comments. I love it, and I hope to be able to do a lot more of that moving forward. But here we are with another episode where we're looking at the brutal series with the Guardians, the upcoming series with another very disappointing team in the Chicago White Sox. We're going to touch on the MLB at the Field of Dreams game that took place on Thursday night, and then we're also going to look at this GM search and some controversy that could exist within it. But before we get to that, I do want to remind you on YouTube to make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get all of your latest Detroit Sports Nation news, and you can also follow The Corner on Twitter at DSN at The Corner. And to jump into the leadoff, let's talk about that Field of Dreams game that took place Thursday night between the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds. Now, I don't know about you, but I do know that after that game was over, I searched every streaming service that I had and found the movie Field of Dreams and watched it because I had to. Because once again, baseball has pulled me into that nostalgia. Listen, I get it. Nostalgia is a heck of a drug. But it's one that for baseball should not be forgotten. Do things need to evolve? Yes, they absolutely need to evolve. The game should evolve. We're talking about closer entrances, which are fantastic and good for the game. We're talking about MLB being, very forward focused on TikTok and Generation Z. Those things are good, but what cannot be lost is the nostalgia. I watched that movie, Field of Dreams, after the game last night, and James Earl Jones gives the famous monologue where he says, America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past. It reminds us of all that was good and could be again. And when those guys took that field in the cornfield of Iowa, things were stripped down. We're not talking about big cities. We're not talking about big stadiums. We're talking about a field that holds 8,000 people. Fans close to the action. We're talking about baseball in one of its purest forms. And that nostalgia is heavy. And that nostalgia is important. Because it's in moments like that that memories are created. The big point of Field of Dreams being a human experience. If you build it, he will come. Ray believed that to be shoeless Joe Jackson, to give him another chance to be on a baseball field, but the reality was, it was to ease his pain and to go the distance so that he could have that final catch with his father. And that was teased, right? You had Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. playing catch coming through the cornfield and playing catch in the outfield before the game. I had the great opportunity of holding my newest son, Teddy, while my oldest son, Jack, sat right next to me and we watched the game. Because that's what baseball does, right? It is a pathway for memories to be created. And baseball is doing a good job of cultivating opportunities for people to create those memories. Now, the game's not going to happen in 2023, which is unfortunate, but there's development going on the property. But baseball would do well to make sure that they get back to Dyersville, Iowa, as soon as they can, so that the nostalgic aspect of baseball, which should never be lost, can once again come to the forefront of baseball fans, and we can kind of relive those memories that we built as children, that we carry on into adulthood, and then try to replicate for the next generation. It's exciting. It's fun. I was able to, like I said, watch it with my sons, and it's very good for my soul. And hopefully it was good for your soul as well. So good on baseball, and I hope that it does continue. But what I hope doesn't continue is this 2022 season. If this were a video game, I would have already done hit simulate, so I didn't even have to watch the rest of it. Because it's bad. The Tigers they are now 27 games below 500. They have the third worst record in baseball. They are last place in the AL Central, 4 games behind the Kansas City Royals. And if you would have told me this before the season, I would have told you that you were a liar. But the reality is this team just is not good. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on the recap because there's really not much to recap. This series with the Guardians was a small microcosm of what this 2022 season is. The Tigers are competitive, just not good enough. They didn't get blown out. They scratched and clawed in the finale, but then ended up coming up short, which is what this entire season is just a series of coming up short. Now, in the middle of that series, you have Al Avila, the architect of this roster, which is bad, being let go. And that's a good move forward. So hopefully, as we'll talk about in the peanut gallery coming up, hopefully the next GM, which may have some controversy surrounding it, can take and be savvy enough to make some moves, which may mean parting with some pieces to actually construct a relatively good roster to get the job done. Now, the other good thing that happened during the series is that Harry Carpenter made his debut, but it was not a good debut. He's had 8 at-bats in 2 games and 6 strikeouts. Some criticism for being left in the game with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th where he struck out in game 2. But how else is Harry Carpenter supposed to get experience? How else are you supposed to see what you have in a player like that if you pinch hit for him in that situation? You say, oh yeah, but wins matter. No, they don't. You have 43 of them out of 113 games. That means you are 43-70 on the season. At this point, wins don't matter. You're picking in the top 5 again in next year's MLB draft, which could be a good thing based on the GM that's coming in. But wins do not matter. What matters is experience. What matters is MLB at bats. What matters is pressure situations for younger guys. And so Harry Carpenter hitting in the bottom of the 8th with the bases loaded and then the Tigers down 1 and striking out, I had no problem with. Shouldn't have a problem with it either because wins do not matter in 2022 anymore. Now, what this should tell us, and I hope that Detroit Tiger fans specifically are listening, is stop reading box scores when it comes to prospects. We fall in love with prospects. Cody Clemens, he needs a chance. He did need a chance. You're absolutely right. Harry Carpenter, he needs a chance. Yeah, you're right about that too. But just because they hit for power in the minor leagues does not mean that it will translate. Sometimes it does. Those are rare occasions. But just because a guy had 30 home runs in the minor leagues this year does not mean he's going to come up and change the power hitting dynamic of the Major League Ball Club. You know why? Because of the vast difference between Major League pitching and AAA pitching. It's a vast, vast, vast difference. And it takes some adjusting. You saw Riley Green come up. Light the world on fire for a couple of weeks, and the league adjusted to him. Now it's on Reilly to adjust back to them. And Riley's been good. Some people in the Detroit market might say that he's been underwhelming or lost at the plate. He's not been lost at the plate. He works accounts. He makes pitchers throw pitches. And I really appreciate his kind of swing first mentality when he swings at that good first pitch that he's going to get. You know why? Because it's an aggressive style that can lead to a lot of outs. There's no doubt about that. But this is who Reilly is. He is an aggressive swinger, which is not a bad thing. It looks worse when he's your leadoff hitter, but he's not going to be hitting leadoff for the rest of his career. He's hitting leadoff now, again, to get experience. Your top 3 hitters in a lineup see the most at-bats per game on average. So AJ's getting him the amount of at-bats, the most amount of at-bats possible in a game, which is not a bad thing. And Riley's holding his own. The power stroke will develop. But it shows you, in these debuts with these prospects that have come up, it shows you the vast difference between pitching at a major league level and a AAA level. If you have any hole in your swing, it will be discovered very quickly and exploited often. And that happened. So while we don't really have anything in Detroit to look forward to other than prospects and what they're doing, the box score is not going to tell you whether they will be a good Major League Baseball player or not. Experience in the big leagues will. Experience in pressure situations in the big leagues will. So let's stop telling people that Kerry Carpenter should have been pinch hit for in the bottom of the 8th. That win doesn't matter. That at-bat mattered. That experience mattered. Because now he has something in the memory bank to go back to and go, okay, how can I approach this differently? And that's part of the growing pains with your young teams. And it's something that all too often this year the Tigers have experienced. But that page is over, so let's turn it. Let's move to the next chapter. To another very disappointing team this season, the Chicago White Sox, a team that was pegged to win this division and outright was declared the division winner unless they lost it. And guess what? They've lost it. They're now 3rd in the division. They're a 500 ball club. Have dealt with some very, impactful injuries. But a very, very disappointing season if you are a Chicago White Sox fan. The games are occurring in Chicago. We got 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So let's go into the pitching matchups, and then, we'll talk a little bit more about the White Sox and what the Tigers can do to maybe win a game in the series. Who knows? Game 1, Friday, 7:10. Old buddy, Van Man, Daniel Morris is going to make his season debut for the Tigers. Now, he was not with the Tigers. We signed him to a minor league contract a few weeks ago. He has 30 innings pitched on the season. Has a 6.90 ERA, but a 5.59 FIP. So he's pitched a little bit better than what his ERA would indicate. He does have a 12.9 K per 9 innings, which about 13.9 is pretty high. But also astronomically high is his 6.3 walks per 9 innings. So it could be a very long game, especially when he's facing off against Michael Kopech, who's 4-8 with a 3.38 ERA. He strikes out about 7, almost 8 per 9 innings, but he also walks about 4 per 9 innings. And he has a 4.63 FIP, so he's pitching just slightly worse than what his ERA would indicate. That's game 1. Game 2, Matt Manning is going to be facing off against Lucas Giolito. Manning's does not have a record. He's 0-0 with a 2.25 ERA, but he has a 4.27 FIP, which means he's pitching actually a lot worse based on the metrics than what his ERA would indicate. He's only striking out about 5 per 9 innings, walking about 3 per 9 innings. Lucas Giolito, on the other hand, has a 4.91 ERA but a 4.28 FIP, strikes out about 10 per 9 innings, and is walking about 3.5 per 9. He has an astronomical batting average on balls in play at 353. Game 3, Sunday at 2:10, Tyler Alexander is going to face off against Lance Lynn. And listen, Tyler Alexander has been a very effective starting pitcher since he's gotten into the rotation. He's got a 3.83 ERA. He's only striking out about 5 per 9 innings, but he's only walking about 2 per 9 innings. He has a 3.99 FIP. Lance Lynn has a 5.88 ERA, strikes out about 9 per 9 innings, and walks about 2 per 9 innings. He's got a 3.10 batting average on balls in play and a 4.63 FIP. So he's pitching actually better than what his ERA would indicate. But the reality is this is one of those series where you just have no idea what you're going to get from either ball club. The Tigers could go out and light the world on fire and just add more disappointment to the White Sox season. Or the White Sox could go out and dominate a team that they're better than. They're going to be without Tim Anderson, who's out with surgery. And the White Sox have underperformed all season. They've been bitten by the injury bug too. And it's why I don't like using the injury bug for the Tigers. Because, yeah, the Tigers have had their bad luck with injuries, but so have a lot of other teams as well. And it's impacted them a little bit more because this is a team that should have been challenging for the division and potentially making, some type of deep run into the playoffs. But they're not. They're not. They will be lucky to even sniff the playoffs at this point with teams like the Orioles overperforming and teams like the Mariners doing what they're doing. I mean, that game that the Mariners had against the Yankees were 0-0 going into the bottom of the 13th inning. What an electric game that was. But as we've said, the Tigers are the third worst team in baseball, and you just don't know what you're going to get on a nightly basis. So what are some keys to this series that we could look at? You got to have good at-bats. Luckily, the Tigers are missing Dylan Cease this go-round, who is just pitching lights out lately. You got some high strikeout rates, right? Kopech is striking out about 8. Giolito striking out about 10. Lance Lynn striking out about 9 per 9 innings. The Tigers averaged 13 strikeouts in this last series with the Cleveland Guardians per game. You have to limit the strikeouts. You have to put the ball in play because this team, the White Sox, are not good defensively. They have a negative 15 outs against average. But if you strike out and don't put the ball in play, you don't give them a chance to misplay the ball. So it's going to be interesting. You have a 3-game set in Chicago, 2 night games, and then an afternoon game. And hopefully the Tigers can get back to winning. They've lost, 4 in a row from the Tampa series to the Cleveland series, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse than that. But let's get to the big topic that everyone wants to talk about, and that's the GM search, right? There are going to be plenty of names tossed around for this search. Sam Menzen, who you can see in the picture there, who's now the day-to-day guy, oddly not called the interim GM, hint, hint. But names like Theo Epstein, Dana Brown, guys from other organizations who have been successful, their names are going to get tossed around. And I know Cody Straverhagen from The Athletic and our very own W.G. Brady have put out a list of 10 candidates that could be viable contenders for the job. Theo Epstein is going to be a name that's going to be a fan favorite because of the proven track record, and honestly, he's number 1 on probably everybody's list. But it is going to be astronomically difficult to get him to come to the Tigers. Not because the Tigers' job is not desirable. The Tigers' job is very desirable. You have a historic franchise with an owner with deep pockets and a fan base that is tops in the country. It's a good job. Is it in the best position? No, probably not, because the roster's not great and the farm system's not deep. But it's still a good job. And a creative and savvy GM could come in and do fantastic. And if you see moves being made, the fan base sees moves being made, the leash will probably be extended because of what we just endured. But one name that's being tossed around, and one name that actually makes a lot of sense, is Jeff Luhnow. Will MLB allow it? Who knows? Could he be blackballed from the MLB? Probably. But this selection makes a lot of sense, even though it's highly controversial. Luhnow was the GM of the Astros when they were pegged for cheating. Another guy we know quite well, A.J. Hinch, was also victim of those circumstances. A.J.'s gotten his second chance, and obviously we are the ones that gave it to him. Could the Tigers try to find lightning in a bottle twice and give Luhnow a second chance? It's very possible. AJ's on the search committee, which is odd but also not necessarily terrible. But Luhnow has a proven record. And if he served his time, doesn't he deserve a second chance? It's intriguing and it's interesting. Now, whether or not MLB will let it happen is a different story. But if you want the trajectory of your organization to change, then it's making moves like this or going outside the organization to a Dodgers, a Brewers, a Atlanta, a Houston, and getting one of their up-and-coming guys to get here. Those are the type of decisions that you make if you want to move forward. Promoting from within could be acceptable, but will be incredibly underwhelming. And Chris Ilitch has a huge choice to make. I don't think this decision will be made lightly. I think that there will be a ton of advice given, hopefully listened to as well. But it's going to be very interesting to see how the Detroit Tigers move forward in this process. And it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly and swiftly they move through this process so that, one, this GM can get a grasp of the roster and the players that maybe he doesn't want around next year so that he can make moves to get players that he does want around next year. And then you have the winter meetings coming up, which are going to be largely significant for the future of this franchise. And as I said on the broadcast on Wednesday, this is an exhale. This is a things are moving forward type of thing. So hopefully the momentum, not on the field, because the momentum on the field is dead. Forget about 2022. It's a wash at this point. The best thing that came out of 2022 is that we have a new GM for 2023. That's it. That's bar none the only thing. So it is very important that this decision is made well and with the proper information, even if you need to take a chance on giving a guy like Luhnow a second chance. He's proven that he can build a roster. He's proven he can build a winner. And he's done it with A.J. Hinch. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not even putting a bet on it or predicting that it's going to happen. But his name definitely will be in the conversation. And if you want a winner, if you want this franchise to change, it's names like his that you should embrace. There are others that would be equally as good. And I'm not putting out Luhnow as the favorite. I'm just saying don't discount him from the conversation. This has been the latest episode of The Corner. I am AJ Reilly here to talk Detroit Tigers baseball with you, recapping series, previewing series, and giving you my thoughts on the game of baseball in an overall general basis. I appreciate you stopping by. I do want to remind you to hit that like button, click subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications on YouTube for all of your Detroit Sports Nation news coverage, because we cover everything. And then also don't forget to follow me over on Twitter at DSN at the corner. We got 3 games in Chicago this weekend. Hopefully there'll be a win or 2 in there. And then we move on to, guess who again? The Cleveland Guardians, starting early on Monday with a doubleheader. I'll be here with you before that series, talking Detroit Tigers baseball. And until then, as always, go Tigers.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way.